Compound inequalities are inequality statements that are connected by a word and or, as we see there in the definition. So we have two inequalities connected by the word and or. And those are really going to come into play when we have to write out an inequality using inequality signs or graph inequalities. When you graph inequalities, we need to understand the difference between and or compound inequalities. That term compound really comes from the term of combining two different things. In this case, we're combining inequality statements. And to understand the difference between and or, I like to use a nice picture mnemonic. So when I write the term and over in this mnemonic section, I like to draw a line underneath it connecting two dots. Doesn't matter if they're open or closed because that's a different kind of thing that we have to understand. But I write and like that because that helps me to understand that with and equations, the lines move towards each other when we graph them. As you can see here in my example section, I have an and equation which says x is greater than -3 and x is less than or equal to 1. The numbers are greater than -3, as you can see on this graph, and they are also less than or equal to 1. So those lines move towards each other, right? In an and statement, the lines move towards each other, which is why I write and like that with a line underneath it. When it comes to or statements, I like to write the word or like this. Or with arrows coming out. It helps me to understand that when I go to graph an or equation, that we're going to be moving in opposite directions with our inequalities. So if I come down here to the or section, I'll write my little mnemonic in there for or, I understand that when I graph these inequalities, I have to be moving in opposite directions. So in the case of x is less than or equal to -2, I can graph -2 on a number line and know that it has to move in one direction. Or x is greater than 4, that moves in the opposite direction. Another helpful mnemonic is to think of oars on a boat. If you do have oars on a boat, they might look like these arrows heading in opposite directions, right? As opposed to lines that are moving towards each other. So hopefully this mnemonic of drawing this line under and drawing the arrows out from the word or will help you to remember what compound inequalities do look like when they're graphed. Here you can see a couple other examples of an and an or equation, number 1 and 2. Of course, the and equation has the lines moving towards each other, and the or equation has the lines moving away from each other. So there you have it, and or, compound inequalities.